freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting the endangered. Unafraid. Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution. Radio. Folks, you're listening to Revolution Radio here at freedomslips.com, and coming at you next, this is Carrie Cassidy with Whistleblower Radio, Project Camelot. So without much further ado, here's Carrie Cassidy. Take it away, Carrie.
Stretched out and purring, waiting for more, strange shade of stone. Hi there, this is Carrie Cassidy, Project Camelot, Whistleblower Radio, and this is Friday night. We're still alive and kicking and haven't fallen off a cliff or anything else. Predictions notwithstanding. So I'm in California. So let's see. I've got a very interesting show tonight. But before I get into that, let me say a couple things about what is going on with Camelot. First of all, we are revamping the site. Because we are trying to make it easier for people to find our work. And because we have over 300 videos, and I can't even count the number of radio shows I've done in the last 3-4 years, but you can appreciate, and then written testimony, et cetera, we just have a huge amount of information to put out there. And at this moment, I'm just simply trying to get that so that people can find our information. The next thing we're doing is we're about to launch DVDs of all the interviews, with a couple of exceptions, but for the most part, we're just going to translate everything into DVDs for people who want to purchase those items and help support Camelot, keep us going financially, and also have I guess you might say, a collector's item type thing. Because since they're free on the web already, being able to purchase the DVD is sort of just like an add-on or an extra. But we have had many people ask us to do this, and so we're working on getting that together. And it looks like we finally have someone who can do that for us, and make it possible for us to make some money as well. So look for that on the Camelot store once we get that rolling out, and I'll also be announcing that on the newsletter, and of course probably on the blog. When we get our new site out there, which should be in the next week, it's really the new front page. It's just going to make it easier, I think, for people to find things. We also want to shorten the number of clicks through to find our radio shows, because that's been a big problem. I know a lot of complaints out there trying to find the archive and get the archived shows. Too many clicks. And, we have had people behind the scenes helping us construct the site. Tommy, for one person, has been in the background for several years, but in the interim, we've also had other webmasters step in and try to help us with design. It's not always as successful as we would like it to be. It's I guess you say, a moving target trying to get this thing this library of material out to the public in a way that is accessible and easily viewable. So those are the things that we're working on. And as most people will know, I've been releasing all kinds of stuff lately. So I just wanted to bring your attention to those couple of things. There are 2 printed, that is written transcript interview type things out there. One is called Monarch 47. It's not really an interview. It is a transcript that someone sent in of their documented testimony as being a mind control MK Ultra Monarch program victim, if you want to call them that. And that is a fascinating bunch of information. All of this is available on my blog. If it's not on the front page, then it's on the prior page. But I think they're both on the front page. The other thing is that there is what's called Revelations from an European Union official, a new interview, and that's also available. So hope people will take a look at that. That was an interview I did on my recent trip to Europe, obviously, and that person cannot go on camera. They are currently employed in the European Union as I guess you might say a mid-level official. Not sure how to classify their position, but the document is quite interesting. And let me say from the get-go that it doesn't mean because I publish an interview that I agree with everything the person says. So that goes for that, and everything else that we put out there. It is a service that we do to help you find the truth of what's really going on. I am an investigative journalist and documentary filmmaker. In the process, I investigate. I share my investigations with you, so you share the journey. And together, we are trying to determine what is true and what is not. So just because you find it on Project Camelot does not mean I advocate it, does not mean I agree with them. It simply means that I think there's value there, and I think that it's a testimony worth listening to. In some cases, I will wholeheartedly agree with them, and in other cases, I will not. That's my private business, but what I pretty much try to help you do is get access to this information. So that's really what it's all about. And many of these people do risk their lives to get information out to you. So it behooves you to give them a certain degree of respect. I would also wish that anybody who's been on my show and or been interviewed by me in the past or in the future or the present would also extend that courtesy to each other as well as to me. There's all kind of backbiting going on out there, bizarre lies and innuendos being put out there in all the time. Whenever you get into the public sector, that's just goes with the territory. It's part of you might call collateral damage. And we are extremely used to it over here at Camelot. We don't talk about it that much, but I just want to say that mutual respect and allowing people to tell the truth as they see it, this is what it's all about. At that point, you can make your decision. You can pick and choose what you would like to believe or take on board, etc. I also want to draw your attention to another recent interview that I did while I was in Europe. That is with Pere Vila. It's called The Secret Control of Water. It's a very important interview. That information has been out there in various forms. This particular man is a dowser. His father was a dowser, and he is also a scientist. Self-taught, but he does teach in universities in Barcelona area. And he is very, very well versed in the Illuminati, in the actually Knights Templar information. In fact, he feels that he was a Knights Templar in a prior incarnation, which gives him a certain degree of access to information that other people might not necessarily recognize at first blush. So I want to encourage people to listen to that interview. Pere is a wonderful, very conscientious individual, as you will see when you watch the video if you haven't already. This is the kind of information that is crucial to understanding how the powers that be are controlling the planet at this time. And so also the current people I have sitting on the line waiting for me to introduce them, I want to recommend that they listen to the Pere Villa interview as well, because this is going to concern ancient sites, power places, et cetera, and they will find this very interesting. They are Pere is translating his book at this present time into English with a translator. So we're going to look very much forward to being able to read his book. It's a lovely book that he released in Spanish in Spain, obviously, and having it available in English would be a huge bonus. So just wanted to let people know about that and give you a heads up. Solaris, Blue Raven is another interesting interview all about synthetic telepathy, and regardless of whether you agree with her personal trajectory or information, I think it's worth listening to. She has definitely been in touch with something, and regardless of there may be some people that don't agree with her or take offense or whatever. And I would just suggest giving her the benefit of the doubt and just listening through to the end and seeing where it takes you. So I guess a lot of people have not subscribed to my newsletter. So one last thing is that I do want to encourage you to subscribe to the Camelot newsletter. If you go to the front page and you scroll down, you'll see all you have to put in is your name and email address. You can put a fake name for all I care. And that's it. We don't ask you any questions or anything beyond that. And I do give people a heads up about new interviews, et cetera, so it's a good way, if you don't come to the site on a regular basis, for you to stay up to speed on what we are all doing over here. And so now, without further ado, I will introduce my guests. I have a group here, and I've just sort of classified all of this discussion to be about ancient aliens, but I think it's about a lot more than that. So Bruce Fenton has been on my show before, and his partner is Daniella Cardenas, and hopefully I'm saying your name right. Stephen and Evan Strong are with them, and I believe all of you are located in Australia. Do I have that right? No?
They are. We're in Ecuador.
Oh, right, Ecuador. Okay. So 2 in Ecuador and 2 in Australia. And I'm just going to kind of briefly try to read as quickly as I can sort of this overview that you sent me about your background, and then let you guys launch into everything. Obviously, there's a lot of different directions we can go in. I can see that you know, first of all, Bruce was on my show a while back. We were talking about one of his books, I believe the 2012 Rising at that time. And at this time, we also have Stephen Strong, Evan Strong, and they're a father-son research team based in Eastern Australia. They're authors of 3 previous books. One is called Forgotten Origin, Constructing a New World Map, and Mary Magdalene's Dreaming, a comparison of Aboriginal dreaming and Gnostic scripture. And so those are all 3 books. So Forgotten Origin and Constructing a New World Map, I think, are 2 different books. And then Mary Magdalene's Dreaming. And then Bruce Fenton and Daniella Cardenas are based in Ecuador. They're a husband and wife team. They're authors of a book, 2012 Rising, The Last Solcan, Warnings from the Maya and Pleiadians. And they've written extensively online. They have their own websites, and I've put all of this onto a page that will be linked to the radio show once we get it out there. And they are guest writers for various magazines, looks like e-zines, as they call them. They have around 50 years direct experience of phenomena. categorized to be supernatural, spiritual, or occult, and extensive personal studies and research. So this is, let me see, their websites are earthforall.net and 2012rising.com. And I guess that's as much as I'm going to introduce you guys. So at this moment, I think the best thing to do is kind of go around the circle and have each person maybe say a few words about themselves, their background, and kind of why you are coming forward at this time on my show, what kind of topics you would like to discuss. Let's start with Bruce.
Hi again. Good to speak to you again.
And hopefully we won't have some feedback. I'm going to mute myself while you're talking. It's going to be a little difficult with all these people on Skype.
Sure, I can appreciate it. Basically, yes, I suppose my background, as you've been a good intro there for me, really, is largely in the supernatural arena. Lots of direct experience, but also research. And this has, in time, led me to a study of ancient civilizations, particularly lost civilizations, and alien contact with ancient civilizations, which is the direction my work took for early 2012, which led to the first book, 2012 Rising, and has continued with this second book, The Ancient Aliens in Australia. Daniella and myself are both psychics, both with lots of strange phenomena behind us, and that is, I suppose, a key part of our contribution to the current co-authored book, where we represent, if you like, the more esoteric and bizarre angle of this story, whereas, of course, Evan and Stephen have kind of tackled the more, if you like, the hard data.
Okay, Daniella?
Oh, actually, I've had to stand in for it because we have a 2-year-old son now, and he's being a bit difficult. So she's had to step away to take care of him. But I mean, I can give a brief of her so people know. Basically, yeah, Daniella's my partner who, since she was a toddler, has had psychic phenomena, visitations from spirits, out-of-body experiences, in older life visitations with ascended masters, channeling. So, pretty much a broad cross-spectrum of supernormal phenomena. And she was a key integral part of the previous book, in that most of the contact experiences we've had with extraterrestrials have been with her, not all of them, but certainly for the most part. She's the more gifted of the two of us, I would happily say, and is Australian, like Stephen Evan, which is where the confusion came in a bit earlier, but she's based here with me in Ecuador, so there is an Australian tie-in back to us, of course, as well. So she may come back later, but we'll see. But yeah, so that's the basics of the two of us.
Okay, Stephen and then Evan. So go right ahead.
Okay, well, we come at this from a completely different angle. We are what I call reluctant late entrants into this field. We've been writing on behalf of Aboriginal people, and elders have been giving us up sacred sites and special information they've hidden. And it's turned out that slowly but surely we've been dragged into the field first of the Egyptians, which we were comfortable with, but quite recently, and in a deluge, we've been given archaeology that has a distinct, much earlier civilization, perhaps even Pleiadian tinge. So we now have finding archaeology hard evidence to back up what Bruce is talking about. And the more we find, the more it confirms what they've said about us being visited much earlier on. And we're finding rocks and archaeology and carvings that are backing that up.
So my background's psychology and social science, and I did a little bit of anthropology and archaeology at uni, and lo and behold, that's what's the most useful now for us. But so a lot of research and stuff like that. But yeah, all roads seem to be pointing towards ancient aliens, really. That's the direction we're all being pushed into, and it's quite exciting and interesting.
Okay, we've got a really bizarre buzzing going on. I don't know what is going on here. Okay, now it's suddenly quieted. I don't know if I guess it's at your end. In Australia, it sounds like an Aboriginal musical instrument. No, just kidding. I don't know what we've got. We've got some ancient aliens listening in, or what the hell's going on. But if they could just mute themselves and be quiet, we would like to proceed. No.
Kerry, this has happened to us every time we've actually been overseas. We were on Radio Freedom a couple of days ago, weren't we? And the announcer actually announced that when we got cut off as we came on again, he said this happens to him every time. So we expect to be jammed and messed up whenever we speak overseas. In fact, we'd be surprised if it didn't happen.
Okay. This is just bizarre. All right. Well, I guess I'm not sure what all is going on here, but oh God, somebody just put a really awful picture on my Facebook page. That would be nice if people didn't put zombies on my Facebook page. Anyway. I'm trying to post the show as I talk here to get people to be heads up and to listen in live. And obviously we're going to have an audience after the fact, but it'd be nice if we could corral some people over here at the moment. And that's always a sort of a challenge to get the advertising out simultaneous with the show. But at any rate, okay, I know you're on together for a reason. So let's hear from Bruce as to why we got the group together here and what all of you are bringing to the table, such that it seemed logical to bring you together.
Yeah, sure, I can do that. I'll just quickly say as well, just to reiterate what Steve and Evan have just said, is that they do seem to have a problem with something or someone jamming them whenever they go on a radio show. I mean, as you heard that noise, I've not heard it on anyone else's Skype. It only seems to happen to them, and every time they go on a show. So if people can bear with it a bit, I don't know if there's any way to correct that. So I think it's an external issue. But basically, yeah, the reason why we're all together is that after my first book, someone that read it contacted me and said that, had I heard of the work of, Stephen and Evan in relation to Pleiadians, which, I hadn't at that time. I saw a few of their YouTube videos which they'd put up. And this is going back just before, just the end of 2012. So I wasn't aware of them before that. And I realised that, they had found, a site in Australia which seemed to back up the idea that these Pleiadians, which we've written about, of course, were present on Earth in ancient times and had a key role towards creation of what we call Homo sapiens sapiens, anatomically modern human beings. We give a date around 1 million years ago, but they might say at least 400,000 plus years ago, based on genetic information they've looked at. So they've basically written about a translation of some glyphs which were found at a place called Carrion in Australia, which tell a couple of different stories. One is of ancient Egyptians coming to Australia, which is controversial enough, of course. But the second, and there's 3 walls, the second story on these walls is far more ancient and involves some glyphs which are of a language unknown to mankind at this time, and along with some that are recognisable in Proto-Egyptian, the oldest form of Egyptian that exists. And the story in this part of the wall is actually of a alien vessel that comes from the Pleiades in the interpretation, is destroyed in orbit above Australia. Some smaller craft, come down. These glyphs show UFOs, I should add. Some of these smaller craft come down. There's some shown as crashing. We have reasons at least one went into the water there at the Bambara waters. Others landed, at least a couple landed, and after the arrival of these beings, they began genetic experimentation with the resident population, which would most likely be something akin to a Homo erectus, and they basically genetically seeded modern human beings. On our side of things, of course, we have written about past life experiences we've had, in which we are aware of this mission. Certainly in some of my own experiences, I recalled being on a ship, that came down after the attack, and in a uniform which matches memories of other people that have recovered this past life, a blue uniform, being a tall being, etc. And the story has matched up with what they've found, along with some of the experiences, of course, Daniella's had with the Pleiadians. which means that, basically we have got the stone story, but from what might be called supernormal and esoteric means, as they have found carved in stone and in other sites around the area where these carvings are, where there seems to be ancient structures and tunnels which cannot have been made by original people, and for the most part not even by Egyptian technology, that some kind of high technology was used at the site. So basically we have collaborated to bring together as much of the story as possible with the hard data, and then filling in, if you like, with the soft data of psychic and paranormal information.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate all of that. Was that Evan speaking?
Sorry, no, that was Bruce speaking.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was Bruce. Right. Okay. So at this point, could we go to Evan?
Sure, I'm here. Yep.
Okay, we have a break. I'm sorry. We'll be right back, and maybe we can work on this sound issue, but we'll continue. Thank you.
Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
He wants a challenge. Let's give him one.
The voice that whispers in your ears are the screams that you feel. The mind you cannot defy is the heart that rules mankind. The people who made you are the gods that will save you. And I am Steve Travesty. I am the voice. The ghost in the machine. Ghost in the Machine, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, Studio B.
Right here, Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps.
Ever feel as though human beings are being farmed? Your food is chosen by the FDA. You're told what drugs you can take, what drugs you can't take, what drugs you must take. Your production value is harvested from you daily. Sales tax, income tax, property tax, utility bills, mortgages, interest payments. When you exercise a bit of freedom on feed or food, traveling or other matters, the farmer cracks down on you. Ever thought of leaving the farm? Learn how. Join Pat and Tammy for Leaving the Farm, Saturday, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, Studio A. See you there, or at the feed trough.
Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, Bruce's phone numbers, well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Our hero claims a warrior's heart. I tell you, the dragonborn with a voice wielding power of the ancient monarch. Believe the dragonborn.
Hi, this is Carrie Cassidy, Project Camelot Whistleblower Radio, and I just want to say that there's some mad typist in the background. It's crazy, but a lot of things are just coming through on this sound waves, so just be sure you mute yourself and be aware of that. So we're going to move ahead here, and Bruce, I apologize for misspeaking before at the end of the show segment there. And of course, that was you speaking. I wanted to have Evan go next, is what I was really trying to say. I've been a bit distracted by the sound issues that we're having here. So go right ahead, Evan, if you could continue to sort of explain a little bit more in how the four of you are working together, or how your work kind of coalesces, if you will.
Okay, yeah, well, I think it's just a way of, it's like two halves of the story, basically. You've got the esoteric and the more kind of data-based approach, and I think they're two halves of the story, and in a way it creates a whole story. Anything you'd like to add?
Well, I think, Gary, what's basically happened here is we found a narrative, those 300 glyphs Bruce was talking about, which have been argued about and debunked, and they've been claimed they were made by a deranged Yugoslav, they were made by a group of mischievous Sydney Uni students, made by a grieving World War I veteran. We've spoken to the elders, and we know the true story with this thing. This place was actually a cavern sealed by a rock roof, and it was sealed this way for 4,500 years.
Until the 60s, I think.
Until the 60s, when the roof fell in, and then the place was exposed. The original women, Arnie Bev Spears told us, would go up to this place and cover the glyphs with women's urine to keep it fresh. Now, they were doing this because it was a very important testimonial. There are two levels, two parts to this story. The Egyptian part, which we're interested in, but the part we opted with Bruce is to do with the story about the first people. And they came from somewhere else. In that particular set of glyphs, you will see the story of genetic manipulation. There are 8 different UFOs on that glyph. Now, one of those UFOs, we have seen an exact replication days away, and we measured it up, and it's to a scale of 10 and 20 throughout exactly the same. And this UFO glyph is 3.9 meters long. That's what we're finding around there. We have in our possession right now a piece of machinery that was found within about 50 meters of those two, of the walls.
I mean, we can best describe that as it's like a metallic object with a crystal embedded within it. It's like a part of a circuit or something.
In the middle of the bush, in the middle of nowhere, we found a metallic and crystal piece of work. We've also got some jewellery, which is not made from iron ore, not made from lead, not made from copper.
Okay. Wait. Hold on. You're saying you found, when you say you said a glyph, first it sounded like you said glyph, which sounded like a carving, and now you're saying it's metallic. What can you...
Oh, no, we found a metal object near the glyphs, which is part metal, part crystal, and we found this alongside this, and what we're suggesting to you and others is in that particular area, we found massive walls, haven't we? That have been just like from South America. Now, this shouldn't be found in Australia. We're finding remnants of an ancient civilization. This is how Bruce and I, all of us got together. He's talking about Pleiadians coming here. On those two walls, there is a story of a spaceship crashing. We can see it. It's written in there. In fact, the most numerous glyph of the 300 is the UFO glyph. And we see two stories there. And the ancient story is what we think. And we're very sure it's exactly what Bruce and Danielle were talking about. And so what we saw that is a combination. We introduced the story of the archaeology, the rocks, the engravings, and all the things we found around there, and then they pick it up. And that's how it seemed to work.
Okay, this is so bizarre. The buzzing thing, whatever it's doing. Okay, well, yeah, I mean, what is happening to you guys in Australia such that, first of all, you have such a strange interference pattern going on, but secondly, have you had visitations by the authorities or other people trying to sort of take you off track?
Yes, we have, and I was wondering if you'd ask that. Let us tell you a story. We shared some of this other information of all the other thing we found around the glyphs, not the glyphs, with the ABC, which is the Australian Broadcast Commission. We contacted a lady, her name is Mary Louise Vince, from that region, and we told them about some of the other stuff we found, like a new set of glyphs that no one even knew about we discovered quite recently, all this other stuff. And she came out there. We took her out there, and she looked around, and she was so shocked by this, she came back and made up a radio spiel. Now, that radio spiel we found about 3 weeks later was on the national news all over Australia.
It was second billing on every ABC News radio channel. There was only one story ahead of it, and it was
1 minute 40. And then the website write-up was so pro us, I was embarrassed by it. I thought, I would have put something negative in there. And we were thinking, we're set. Within 2 hours, every station had taken it off air, and the website article was taken off. And it went off. Now, they put something back a couple of days later, very anti-us, where we weren't even acknowledged, where they talked about the glyphs, but we never spoke about the glyphs. We gave them all the supporting evidence. Then we got a gentleman who worked for the Sydney Uni, he's a professor. He got in contact with the ABC, and they finally gave a reason why they took it off. The reason was this, and this is official, they don't have to give one. So, yes, we have been. This has happened to us quite often.
I asked a researcher friend of mine that works for them, what the hell is going on? And he said, well, the only way that it's happened is that it's happened so quickly that someone from right on top, right above in the organisation has decided to pull it. So
I'm sorry, but this thing is really getting worse and worse. I think that you need to create a new Skype account. If one of you could do that really quickly, maybe we'll surprise the machine if you don't mind. You can just Skype is free, so just create a new Skype account, and let's try to do that on the interim while you're creating a new Skype account. And I appreciate what you're saying. There's no doubt that you guys are being messed with. Based on my rather extensive whistleblower information coming out of Australia, I can tell you that you're probably onto something very good. Let me talk in the meanwhile while you guys create your new Skype account. Let me talk to Bruce Fenton and Daniella if she's available. If not, we'll just go with Bruce for the moment. Okay? I guess that's a yes. Okay, so Bruce, can you address what you think may be going on such that, or I don't know if Daniella is, what kind of I forget, if you don't mind, the sort of ongoing interactions she's having, but have they specifically talked about the find in Australia?
Well, where it's been specifically about that, if you like, was my own past life experience, which this goes back, it's about 10 years ago, really. I had a recall of a life situation where I was on board a small craft. I was coming down towards Earth. I was a tall being, humanoid, in a blue uniform. I knew that there'd been an attack and that a lot of people had died. And I was coming into a sort of forced landing. I was aware that there'd been a mission, that we had come to Earth to help the hominid population there, which was enslaved by a reptilian race. and that we'd been basically double-crossed. There'd been an agreement for this to be a handover, a fairly peaceful handover to the Pleiadians, an alliance of beings. Not when we say Pleiadians, a craft came from the Pleiades, but this is a craft that had multiple races on board, an alliance, if you like, and that I was one member of this crew who had managed to get away from the attack. And then, I was aware of the basic details, the framework of what we had come to achieve. After this, that past life memory ended. I didn't really know what to do with that. As you can probably imagine, for many years, it was just put in that box of strange, supernormal things that happened, that I had no way to really follow up on. I had no idea if anyone else had had any related experience, and I didn't, know about the Pleiadians at that time. So I've had the most direct experience, if you like, relating to this mission. It's only in working with Steve and Evan that I've come to know that, in fact, there are many people with this recall. In fact, there's another book by someone out in Australia who has written the accounts of 20 people that have either been regressed or had spontaneous memories of all being on that same mission, and all having been Pleiadians and ended up, stranded in Australia in a very ancient time, around about 750,000 to 1 million years ago, depending on the memories from the person. And this has been, if you like, the most direct. I mean, what the Pleiadians really have given us through Daniella is an update in that story, in that it was being very clear that they were involved with us later on in history in the Mayan Empire, where they, at this point, had created a new kind of hybrid, if you like, rather than just Homo sapiens sapiens. They had, in fact, created a more Pleiadian-type hybrid, taller, stronger, more psychic, and it was basically an upgrade, if you like, in the human form, which they were utilising, that in their soul energy would go into these bodies, and they were essentially running some of the empires in the Mayan times. So, if you like, my memory goes back to the ancient point, whereas the experiences Daniella's had have been more to do with the 7th century, although she has some limited recall of the same event that I recalled, although mine was, if you like, much more clear. It was a more profound experience. So we have a continuation in the same story, in that we know it goes back to an original Pleiadian mission around 1 million years ago, and that they have been interacting with humans and genetically modifying humans ever since, in some capacity. To the present moment, where we know, of course, many people are still being visited in the way that we are, or channeling with them, or, what have you, seeing their crafts. So this is a continuation of one story.
Okay. Am I to assume that you guys are all thinking that this craft or metallic object is relating to a craft, and or the glyph that was found is Pleiadian in nature? Is that what you're all thinking?
Yes, because the reason why is because it specifically says in the glyphs that the craft, as it entered our reality, I mean, you've got to remember that for something to travel, of course, from the Pleiades to here, it couldn't be on normal rockets. This is hyperdimensional physics. So it explains a craft drops out of, its hyperspace, if you like, into our system, and at some point slightly after that, it becomes crystalline, before then being destroyed and fractured to pieces. So funnily enough, you find, a piece of metal which has embedded in it, from intense heat by the looks of it, a piece of crystal. So yeah, this does directly match with what we have had, turn up in the glyphs, and with the memories from those with the past life memories. It's an exact match, yes.
Okay. We're still sort of waiting to see if we can get, Evan and Stephen online here. I believe that they were hoping to do some kind of phone call, but we can't call. I don't think anyone can afford to call Australia from the States for any period of time. So I don't think that's going to fly. So is there? I'm not sure. I guess they're still working on that. So we're going to continue this. In terms of you had, I guess, published that book a while ago. Can you bring us up to date on what you've been doing since then? This is Bruce.
Sorry, could you repeat?
Yeah, Bruce. I was wondering, the 2012 Rising was written a while ago, obviously. So I was just wondering what you've been doing since then.
Oh yeah. Okay, well, I suppose for the most part, writing this second book, but also just dealing with the challenges of living in a new culture in Ecuador, where I've only been here since the beginning of 2012, and it was shortly after that the contact experiences began. So we've had a pretty full-on ride here, to be honest, and with, as you can imagine, all the normal problems of, for me, a language barrier and income difficulties and all that. So I've been basically coping with relocating to a new country and with profound supernormal events and writing a book. So, and as well as having a son. So, which. It's been.
So you've had more than enough on your plate.
Yeah.
And Daniella as well, no doubt. In terms of Ecuador, is there? I don't think necessarily saying exactly where in Ecuador you are, but what is your experience so far? Is this a positive experience or mixed, or how would you characterize it?
Ecuador's an interesting place. I mean, as you probably know, quite a few people from the US have headed there to avoid the potential dollar collapse and to avoid, potential climate shift events. And so, I mean, particularly Cuenca and down in Vilcabamba, there's a lot of people coming from the US actually who probably would be listening to your show a lot, I imagine. There's a lot of people that, are very concerned with events in the US and with the control grid that have headed here. So I think we're probably in good company in that respect. It's a place where there's, a fair amount of freedoms at the moment, and where the US dollar is used. So there's a big draw to people who are looking to escape the control grid. There are cultural differences and, there are things that prove to be challenges. But, I would say to anyone, just anyone out there who is interested, certainly put it on your list of dugout locations. I mean, it's cheap food, organic. They banned GMOs. There's no modified vegetables and all of that. So far, the president seems to be resisting US presidential control, which has been a problem, of course, in Latin America for a long time and throughout the US military base and other things like that. So I suppose you'd say at the moment we're a bit insulated from the New World Order agenda. But I have no illusions that if there's a big push by, those forces to bring Ecuador into the fold, that the people here, not being too unkind, but there's a lot of not well-educated people who I think if you said you need to all get, ID chips put in you so you can access it, would probably just go and queue up and take them. So, I mean, it's a country of contrasts, I suppose. It's got, there's at the moment a lot of good, but it could turn the other way.
Okay, I was just wondering whether or not we were able to get Evan and Stephen on a new account yet, or if that is not flying. Does anybody know? Well, please Skype me in the background here if you can let me know. That would be good. Okay. In terms of I guess you had this 2012 Rising, and I believe if I may be mistaken, correct me then. But has there been, let's say, predictions that simply did not happen, of things that did not happen? Because seems to be an epidemic of that lately, and I'm just curious how things fared on your end.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, you probably agree, Kerry, that I think almost anyone who put out a book about, with something to do with the 2012 Mayan calendar in it will be, in at least some of the things they said shown wrong. I think that, I'm certainly in good company in that respect. That, I don't think that there's anyone who got it completely right. Whether they were saying it would be, open alien contact with the government, or whether they felt that, it'd be the end of the world, or that there'd just be, a new age very clearly where we all restart again, So yeah, I mean, I'd certainly hold my hands up and say that some of the information that I was given, which I chose to share, hasn't proved to be, what I expected it to be. And if I'm honest with you, Kerry, I'm a little bit, cross with sources. I'm not going to sort of stick up for them. So, I was put in a position where information was given to me, which I had to make a decision. Either I shared it, knowing that if it was wrong, I would look stupid, or I kept it to myself. And if it was right, I would basically be, a pretty nasty person, because it looked like I had left people to the wolves. So, yes, I chose to share things which, I wasn't sure were genuine, because they're not from me, they're from sources. And some of those happened and some didn't. So, I don't think I had a big impact in it, to be honest, because the book didn't sell. Because as you can imagine, releasing a book relating to that subject in September of 2012, it was never really going to reach a huge audience anyway. But I did my bit, what I was asked to share, and some things happened and some didn't. So I'll be honest, I'm glad that the worst of it didn't, because I have a family and like everyone else, and no great desire to move on right now.
Okay, so the good news is we're still here, punching away at the situation, so to speak. Okay, fair enough. In terms of the find and that's going on here in Australia, is there anything that you can kind of contribute to the overall story, you and or Daniella, about, beyond, your personal sort of, I guess, pre-experience or whatever you want to call that, in terms of, have you, how you're continuing to investigate, if you are continuing to investigate, what sort of tactics you're following, etc.
Well, yes, but we are following up more, beyond Australia, if you like. Of course, Stephen having been on the ground there, they're the ones that are finding the sites. They'll probably, if they get back on, they'll explain that, they've been assisted by other researchers who've had access to abilities to locate, underground areas there through, technologies and whatnot, and have found, a lot of sites beyond these glyphs, So in terms of finding the physical evidence in Australia, no, I haven't got too involved with that, trying to sort of assist in their physical research. That's well covered. They're out on the ground, they're finding new sites. People may have seen, they recently released an article that they've located an ancient mound, which can be called Australia's Stonehenge, if you like, which was made up of 141 standing stones, which is going to, is really going to rock the foundations, I think, of history, because it shouldn't be there, because the original people weren't supposedly building megaliths. But from our side, sorry.
Well, okay, just because I want to stop you there, just so I don't forget, you're saying they discovered these standing stones. Are they, in other words, this is not something that was known already to Australians?
Well, it was rediscovered. It was discovered, and then it was basically covered up, as these things are, as you know, Kerry. The government didn't like the idea of this thing being there, so they basically buried the stones, which they're still there, so the idea is to try and put them back in place. But they buried the stones, they covered up the fact this place had been found, because, original people in Australia were supposed to be basically monkey-like, as far as the English, conquering force were concerned, and that there was no place in that history to have standing stones, because it went against orthodoxy, and thus, it could not exist, so they did their best to destroy it and hide it. So what Stephen and Evan did is actually they've rediscovered the site, and they're now in the process of, making the world aware of it, and hoping to get the stones dug up and put back into place. There is an image of how they were, so they know where they should be standing. So that's a site which, I hope they'll come back on, because they'll tell you a lot more about it, but there's been engravings found there and all sorts of stuff which show this is a really, really, really ancient site, which goes back at least thousands of years, at least contemporary with Stonehenge, if not older. So that's something they've done. On our side, we're following up a couple of lines in Egypt and here in Ecuador, so we are hoping to be able to bring out, if you like, some physical sites that we know of in those locations. I have to be a little bit because I can't talk about that term, because there's a site here which it will become known about by the end of the year.
We've got a break, and Bruce, thank you very much. We've got a break coming up, but we'll be right back with Bruce, Fenton, and crew. Hope they'll be back on another account. We're 100% out. Thank you.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
What are we supposed to do?
I'm going to fight because I'm used to it. The rest of you are going to have a tougher choice. And look, I don't want to sell it to you. It's too ugly for that. And it's ugly and it's hard. But when you're fighting in your own backyard, you're fighting for your family. It all hurts a little less and it makes a little more sense. But for us, this is our home. Even the Chinese flea can drive a big dog crazy. So the first thing we have to do is learn how to work together. Become a unit. And that's going to take some time. So we're going to have to evolve. Rewire our reflexes. Learn new skills and adapt old ones. So we'll find people we can trust. Friends with their ears to the ground who can help us get the things we need to fight back. Watch what they do. Study their tactics, their routines. The more we know, the easier it will be to hurt them. But we need to be smart, and we need to be patient. Hit them on our terms. When we're good and ready. We inherited our freedom. Now it's up to all of us to fight for it.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, where the fight begins and information never sleeps.
This is Jim Fetzer inviting you to call into Non-Random Thoughts on Revolution Radio Thursday, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll all begin with thoughts about the day's events and then invite callers about JFK, 9/11, Senator Paul Wellstone, Sandy Hook, the Boston bombing, Syria, NSA surveillance, Obama, McCain, you name it, I'll take it. This is a show for you to ask questions of me about some of the most complex and controversial issues of our day. I'm looking forward to it, and especially to hearing from you.
That's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Studio B, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Thursdays. Be there where information never sleeps. Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. Thank Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. If you plan to call in and speak with one of our hosts, please turn down your radio and separate yourself from any background noise and wait for the area code to be called on before you speak. And don't forget, Revolution Radio freedomslips.com is listener supported. So stop by the homepage, freedomslips.com, visit the site support area to help support the host you're listening to's airtime. Thank you. Revolution Radio freedomslips.com, where the truth never sleeps.
Syndicalist commune. We take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week. Yes. But all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting. Yes, I see. By a simple majority in the case of purely internal affairs. Be quiet. But by a 2/3 majority in the case of more... Be quiet. I order you to be quiet. Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look. It's just a flesh wound.
I don't believe I've seen such a display of courage, skill, nerve, grace, and stupidity.
I'll do you for that. You what? Come here. What are you going to do, bleed on me? I'm invincible. You're a loony. The Black Knight always triumphs.
Roundtable Live, Monday through Friday, 1 a.m. till 4 a.m. Eastern Time. Bring your mind, bring your ideas, bring your voice. King Arthur had nothing on us here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com.
Get on your knees. Recognize who you are. Begin to push the envelope of your potentiality. We are more than we give ourselves credit for. And multiple off and on planet races of self beings have a vested interest in seeing you don't know the truth. The question is, do you want to give your power over to unity without questioning what their true agenda is? Just because they can surround your skies with the magic of high technology, do you think that the spirit has technology on any level? We bow to no one. It is that simple. Are you ready to claim your birthright? Move to discover our place in the galactic unity. Listen to the whistleblower song.
Hi there, this is Carrie Cassidy, Project Camelot, Whistleblower Radio, and actually what you just heard was an excerpt from a song, if you want to call it, it's a speaking song, however you say that, but working on that bit of piece of music, and that's actually a pretty bad mix of what we're working on, but nonetheless decided to put it out there in rough form so you get a kind of a preview of what we're out there talking about and what I'm putting together. So with the help of some musicians, and that is Earth Leakage Trip is the name of the band, and I've actually interviewed one of the principals on that band, Neil Anthony Sanford, and so we're going to be going down that road and trying to get that out as an EP, among with a few other releases that I'm working on. So that's kind of fun. It's basically taking the Camelot mission and concepts and putting them to music. Let's see, Bruce, where are we at? Do we have the other? Do we have Stephen and Evan now online?
I believe so, in the new Skype.
Yep, we're here.
Okay.
How do we sound?
You have that weird thing going on in the background. Must be part of your computer, but it sounds much quieter. So we'll keep our fingers crossed and move ahead. Now that we've got you back, what I was asking is, is in terms of what has been found in Australia. I guess Bruce was talking about a place of standing stones that had been discovered or rediscovered. Do you want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, I think that's probably the reason why we have so much trouble talking overseas about this. It is an amazing site. In fact, it was called the Stonehenge of Australia. It was discovered in 1939, and within the year it was destroyed. Such was the problems it caused. I won't go into the reasons why that took place, but when it was destroyed, the government thought the whole thing was done. But about 2 months ago, the notes from the president of the Australian Archaeological and Education Research Society of Australia were refound. And in it was a map showing us where the stones were and also a translation of it. And the amazing part of this is, according to his notes, he says it's the oldest form of temple in the world and dates back to the advent of the first man. But he goes even further, and it's quite amazing what he claims. And don't forget, this is the president, the top archaeologist of the country at the time. He said that this mound and the complex, which is the first language on this planet, forms the basis of all knowledge, all science, all history, and all forms of writing. They're his words, not ours. Now, what happened was in 1940, the landholders, and we met, and we know, and we have the permission of the gentleman who destroyed this place. In 1940, they were approached by the Australian government and told their land, which they'd had since 1889, was going to be confiscated. So what they did, and we don't blame them for this, is a young fellow who's 92 today and has given us permission to go back to this site, disploughed the whole site. It's made of thousands upon thousands of stones with engravings and hieroglyphs, and they're all shaped. And we found quite a few of them. In fact, we've counted 852 of them. Now, what's fascinating about this story is we found a mound there that's made of thousands of tons of cubic material that's not found anywhere within 25 k's from this place. And there are rocks there that weigh tons that have been transported. And it's all a place. It doesn't fit the original technology. Don't forget, these people are sticks and stones technology. And here we have quarrying and transporting of hundreds, thousands of tons of material, sandstone from a place it shouldn't be, isn't it? It doesn't belong there, and we sent people around. There's no quarry anywhere close for this place. And what's more amazing is the language. The language is a combination of hand signs, 21 parts of the body, 38 symbols of the hand, 16-letter alphabet, 7 sensory symbols, 10 elements, 192 components. And this gentleman had compiled 28,000 words from this language. Now, what gets weird about this, Kerry, is if this is the first language on this planet, and by the way, we've had elders who've come from the middle confirm it actually is and say this guy's right. We were always told the first language was a very crude piece of work. Grunts, a few basic emotions, a bit of food, a spear, sex, drugs, rock and roll, just the very simple things in life. Stuff. This one is the most amazing tabernacle. It's a sublime statement, and it's got nothing like that. And if you don't mind, before we get cut off, and that's why I'm rushing a bit because I'm sure we will, I want to quote from the notes from this professor in 1939. And this is what it actually says. Enter and learn the truth of the divine light. The breath of God is the divine light of the soul. And it goes on like this all the way through. The light of truth flows like a river of fire from God to the soul of man and woman united. That's something we could learn from. And what is also found here, Kerry, and I think this is one of the reasons why this was a very inconvenient truth, is it's a repetition of one theme. And I'd like to share with you just one quote from this same, what they call is the first sacred language on this planet. Guided by truth, man came to earth through darkness, from the light of life that shines far off. Now, this business about coming to earth, in this translation that was done in 1939, it's only been found 2 months ago. We find that all the time, don't we, Evan?
Yep, definitely.
Come to earth, come to earth. It's repeated throughout. Now, this particular statement, it's an arrangement of 141 standing stones, and when all the glyphs were there and all the markers were there, these people spent the whole year translating it. And this guy was in contact with what he thought was the last elder in Australia that knew the first sacred language. But he wasn't. They're still alive to the day, and one of those men came to this place when we re-energized that site. We went back there again. Now, we believe that this is a technology and an artifact does not belong. It should not belong to sticks and stones technology, but it's there. But if this is the very first language, and if you read what's there, and you watch the TV shows and the radio shows and you watch the reality shows and what our kids talk about today, and I look at what they said then, I must tell you, we've been going backwards and now we're screaming down the cliff at the moment because they were into some more important things than we were.
Okay. Well, just let me say that this is very interesting information. The Australia is the sort of center of the New World Order, as people may not or may know. It is definitely where they roll things out first. That and England are just a few steps ahead of the rest of the world in terms of being inundated by surveillance technology and being really locked down and covered by electronica and other things, in my opinion. And I can tell you that this energetics is something that we, and even I'm encouraging anyone who's listening to this, all you do is you concentrate on surrounding these individuals with some white light and then taking that energetic, that is this vibrational frequency, and turning it back on itself, this electronica, whatever you want to call it, and just sending it back where it belongs, and then we will be in a better situation, and so will these two brave individuals. So I do want to say that it is fascinating what you're talking about. No doubt there's something very important there that they don't want out there. I believe we do have your website link, but could you give your website? And then my question is, are you writing this information down so that people can, in real time, in other words, is it available on your website? Are you publishing that with photographs, that sort of thing at this time?
First of all, the website link is forgottenorigin.com.
And yeah, we are publishing. What we're doing is that we put out the first article, which went through a group of elders. All of our work has to go through the elders first. It's been checked and okayed. And we're putting it out through a web magazine called Wake Up World. Now, we put the first one out, which is just a general overview of what we said, and also a computer animated sort of, computer kind of generated image of 141 standing stones in a general article. The second article, because I won't put the science in until we put the elder story in, because we follow the elders first. So what we did was the second article is a story about the elders going on the site. The third article, which we're also going to put up on Wake Up World first, will actually be the paper, the science, the whole thing. And that's been done now, but it's been sent out to 10 different elders at the moment, and they have to check it first. Because we don't work for a university or a government department. We work for the original people here. They're our guides here. So the reason we're at this site is because they made sure we are. Now what we're doing now is we're putting it out free first, because this is information that should not be sold through a book. I mean, we're going to put it in one of our books, of course, down the line, but we're putting it out straight away through that particular magazine. And there is a YouTube coming up soon on Ancient Origins.
Yeah, Ancient Origins.
They went out on the day.
Went out on the day, and they're going to put that up very soon as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, like I said, I would encourage you to put the information out on the web in a variety of places so that it doesn't get lost and you don't get shut down anytime soon, and so that you can continue your work. Is there anything else while we have you on the line? I did want to open this up for questions from the audience, assuming we have people out there who might like to ask you some questions. And please do listen again to my Pere Vila interview. It's on the front page of Camelot, if you would be so kind, because I think that this will also give you a heads up. And I know the Aboriginal people will definitely relate to what Perret is talking about in terms of underwater, in essence, what are ley lines, but they have to do with the water lines. Okay, so is there anything else that you would like to talk about before we open it up for questions?
Yeah, if I could, I'd like to finish with one thing. We could talk about the archaeology and the amount of cubic metres that are there, but there's a more important thing that took place, and I think this was the real meat of the day. I first went up and I took the elders up before the team. And the elders stood on the top of this mound. And this is a true story. They all saw this happen. And our elder that came from the middle, we don't use names here because we're a collective, he looked up to the sky and he called out and he said he wanted 3 hawks to appear. And they did. Then he said 5. 5 would be better. And this is exactly what happened. 5 appeared. Then he called out a third time. He said 7 would be nearly perfect. And above us, well, not me, the other 4 that were there, well, I went elsewhere and we told the story and he told us what happened. We got back. 7 appeared. Then finally 8. Now 8 is the shape of the mound and the shape of the thing that we preach called Wirrachin, blackfellow, whitefellow dreaming. Now those 8 hawks circled above us before anyone else came, and then I joined them, and there they were, and then they told me, go down and get the rest of the crew. And as I ran back down the hill to get the rest of the crew, one of the hawks peeled off and ran in front of me, and I could see its shadow a pace ahead of me, and I kept running and running ahead as it led the way. Now we figured from that point on that this was not just an archaeological site, it was a spiritual site. Now, according to the elders, this is the most spiritual site in this country. And they have a belief, that's why an elder came from the middle, that when this site was sung up, it would have an impact much further than just in that place. It would have an impact in a lot of ways that people don't fully understand. Maybe some were looking to take place in late December last year. The original people didn't see the story like the rest of you. They just saw it as one of many signs. The reason they give us this information is because they believe something is going to take place, but your timing is wrong. But what I can tell you were, that man stood there and he called 8 birds and they came, and they were hawks. Hawks don't circle in a group of 8, and that's the figure they made. And they don't peel off and run you back down there unless there's more to this story than just a piece of archaeology. We suspect there's a double level to this, and that's why the second part of this story is the elders' account. And within that, I talk about the 8 hawks and the one that followed us out. And for me, that archaeology is as strong as any rock we found or the number of cubic tons that we're going to count up there. And that's the real story about this. It's got 2 levels. One's historical, and it's the past. Those hawks, they were today. And don't forget, this stone does say, it gives, this is what Slater said too, and I'd like to close with this. It tells about all knowledge that was, will be, and will come to pass. That's not my comment. That's Slater's. And that was in 1939, and he was the president.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's a nice way to finish. I think there's more to this story than some rocks, and I think it has a bigger impact than a lot of people might even begin to understand.
Okay, who was the president? What do you mean he was the president?
The gentleman that first did all the work on this, we got his notes that were hidden for those 60 years. His name was Frederick Slater, and he was the president of the Australian Archaeological and Research Society of Australia. He was the elected president, and they were the group of archaeologists that came together and made decisions. And he was working with a lot of different sites, but this was the site that took him the most, and that's why he called it the Stonehenge of Australia. Not us, but him.
Okay, very interesting. All right, we're going to open the lines for questions then, and anyone that wants to either call in or if someone can take if the questions that are typed into the chat room and paste them in the Skype here, that would be great. Beyond that, it would be good if we could hear. I guess I'm still not seeing where sort of Bruce and Daniella, did you just become aware of these researchers, or are you somehow linking your work together? I'm not sure I understand how there is a flow through. Is it just because you're looking at ancient sites around the world and these people are focused on the specific Australian sites? Bruce, do you want to explain a little further?
Yes, I mean, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, to try and clarify for your listeners exactly how it merges together. I mean, I know I mentioned initially the past life memory, but obviously there is more to it. I suppose the brief summary is that the memories that I have are not only, as I say, not only myself that's had a memory of this life in which this ship crashed. Essentially, I'm saying, I was on the ship in another life, the ship that was destroyed above Australia, which led to the Pleiadians being there, which led to this site, which led to the constructions there, which has led to the recording in the original people's history of the arrival of this ship, which has led to those glyphs. All of it goes back to a craft being destroyed, one which I, based on things that have happened to me in my life, claim to have been on. I'm not alone in that. There are at least 20 people that have come forward. I will briefly mention there's another book about this, which is written by a lady called Valerie Barrow, who is also Australian. I did not know of her book, and I didn't know of Stephen and Evan previously, but there's at least 20-odd people now that have given past life memory reports of being on the ship. I'm just one of them. The flow of my situation, and Danny's, if you like, was that when we came back together, in this life, a lot of information came to us, which led to the books. Basically, the Pleiadians began contacting after we started living together. That's when the Pleiadians basically opened this channel and made us they were very clear. They said, you are Pleiadians, we consider you to still be Pleiadians, just because you're in human bodies. That to them is irrelevant. They've basically been very clear in that, and that we are, in their mind, if you like, still part of the original mission, which is to, if you like, to help humanity awaken to its situation, which is in part the issue of the New World Order, which we did write about in the first book as well, and that there is this reptilian agenda, the grey agenda, things that, of course, you've covered in many shows, Kerry. This is all part of what we've shared. If you like, the conspiracy side is all part of this story. That the Pleiadians are part of an alliance of extraterrestrials that are trying to assist mankind, and they feel a responsibility because they help to actually bring about modern humans. Daniella and I have been through a number of very intense experiences. Listeners of the previous show that we're on will know that basically for her it's been actually finding herself at night taken, and I'd say psychic abductions rather than physical abductions, and finding herself taken initially to a meeting with these Pleiadians, and then later being taken to ancient Palenque, where she was put into a previous life body and was able to basically wander around the city, seeing what the Pleiadians were doing there, having access to calendars, to underground areas, seeing laboratories of greys, seeing a small contingent of reptilians in an area under the city. Basically, the entire, if you like, backstory for us is being shown very, very clearly, the ongoing story of the betrayal of the original mission and the continuing influence of the Greys and the Reptilians in humanity through the New World Order, and that our mission, if you like, has been to share with people the reality of this alien presence and of the Pleiadian presence, and that these, that there are many people on Earth today, starseeds, if you like, who are Pleiadians in human bodies. We don't claim to be special. There are, I'm sure, thousands at this point, and each has been given their own task. Ours is to write these books, and ours is to help with what Stephen and Evan are doing. We probably mesh very well with the original elders in Australia, who have a lot of the same experiences that we've had. So although it might sound bizarre to some people that, say, Daniella being taken, finding herself torn apart and sent through a barrier to a meeting of Pleiadians, in fact, Stephen later told us when we first spoke that this was an exact description given to him by elders of how their shamans travel into the other world to communicate with the star heroes, the space heroes, if you like, these Pleiadians and stuff that were their founders. So there's a total tie-in to what they are writing about.
All right, thank you. Well, I'd like to go back over to Stephen and Evan and ask if they themselves, this means on more or less a personal level, had any interactions with either Greys, Reptilians, or Pleiadians.
Okay, well, that's a good question. And
it is.
It is a great question. And our answer would be, no, it's definitely not. We're coming from this from a completely different point of view. And let me see if I can sort of explain how we got linked up with Bruce, because it does sound like we're sitting on the two extremes of where you could actually talk
no,
this.
that's fine. That's great. And thank you. Yes, please explain.
What happened was, when we first started getting involved, the group from that were protecting these glyphs that we spoke about at Carry On, they got in contact with us because we're doing all this archaeology, finding all this Egyptian stuff all the way around them. And we became involved, and they met a lady called Valerie Barrow, the one that Bruce spoke about. And she spoke to us about being a Pleiadian and crashing in a spaceship and the whole thing that Bruce spoke about word for word virtually. And I said to Valerie at the time, and I think Evan, we both said this to her on many occasions, love what you're saying. We really think it fits in. Yeah. But there's no way we're going down that path. We're flat out going down the Egyptian path. We're not walking down this path. But as we kept doing this, we kept hearing the elders keep talking about the Seven Sisters, their most important dreaming story, and it goes across the whole of the country. It's the only dreaming story that transcends all of the 500 different tribal nations about the Pleiades. And they kept hearing this. And I kept saying to Valerie time after time, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to go down your way. But she was the very first person who introduced us to this. So then what happens is, virtually within days after us saying, yes, we are going to start talking about Pleiades, we're going to start putting it in articles we've been written for national press here, Bruce and Danielle ring up. And they tell us exactly the same story we've been hearing from Valerie all the way through. Now, we know Valerie's writing her own books, and we just figured to ourselves, we could not think of a more timely introduction to that. And you know what? As long as they could put three words together, we were going to go with these guys anyway. Everything they said was an echo of what Valerie said. We just felt like, no, this is the right thing to do. Yeah. We were going to stand by these guys as long as they could spell the cat in the hat. We would have stood by them and have it published with because they were good people. We could see they were genuine. We've heard this story so many times. That's why we did it.
Okay, we've got feedback. I guess that might be somebody who's calling in. So is there a caller on the line? And go ahead and ask your question if you'd like. It looks like area code 520. Oh, sorry, we're going to a break. You're going to have to hang on until the other side of the hour. Just the other side of the half hour. We'll be right back.
Radio at freedomslips.com. And we'll be right back after this message.
What are we supposed to do?
I'm going to fight because I'm used to it. The rest of you are going to have a tougher choice. And look, I don't want to sell it to you. It's too ugly for that. And it's ugly and it's hard. But when you're fighting in your own backyard, you're fighting for your family. It all hurts a little less and it makes a little more sense. But for us, this is our home. Even the tiniest flea can drive your big dog crazy. So the first thing we have to do is learn how to work together. Become a unit. And that's going to take some time. So we're going to have to evolve. Rewire our reflexes. Learn new skills and adapt old ones. So we'll find people we can trust. Friends with their ears to the ground who can help us get the things we need to fight back. Watch what they do. Study their tactics, their routines. The more we know, the easier it will be to hurt them. But we need to be smart, and we need to be patient. Hit them on our terms. When we're good and ready. We inherited our freedom. Now it's up to all of us to fight for it.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, where the fight begins and information never sleeps.
The Empire is in peril.
You're probably too young to know, but the Empire is always in some kind of peril.
I may have been overly rude earlier.
you're a pirate. I may have been overly charitable when I said I wasn't.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Be here Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time to catch Roxy Lopez straight from the Valley of the Sun. Her discussions run from chemtrails to sovereignty, aliens to conspiracy facts. So join us for The Truth Denied with Roxy Lopez. Again, that's Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
You ever get tired of being wrong? Because you're the future!
You know what the difference is between you and me? I make this look good.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
Our hero claims a warrior's heart. I tell you, the Dragonborn comes with a voice wielding power of the ancient Lord heart. Believe, the Dragonborn comes.
Hi there, this is Carrie Cassidy, Project Camelot, Whistleblower Radio, and we are talking to Bruce Fenton, Daniella, Cardenas, although she's been in the background this evening, and we also have Evan and Stephen Strong from Australia, and we've been talking about their very interesting finds, archaeologically speaking, in Australia, and having a tremendous amount of interference with all of this. But I do think that what they're talking about is important, and hope we can get some people out there to support you guys in what you're doing. And thank you, Bruce and Daniella, for highlighting what they're doing as well and augmenting it. Right before the break, I guess we had a caller, and I think that person had to move on because they had their radio playing. Although I see perhaps they called back. We've got I'm going to let them on the line here if they are still there. It looks like area code 520.
Hello, Carrie.
Hi there.
Hi, this is Lynn in Arizona. I had a question for Bruce about Ecuador, and I wanted to know what town or city the Americans are moving there, because I understand they're moving there there's at least 100,000 in Ecuador. And my other question for Bruce was, is there a lot of UFO contact?
Okay, that's a couple of good questions. On the first one, the main town is Cuenca. That's where the majority of US citizens have headed. Some have headed down to Vilcabamba. But I've actually, on a personal level, I've had a warning from someone that Kerry knows very well, actually, Bill, who's out here, and he actually advised us not to go to Vilcabamba. There's a lot of problems. But Cuenca is apparently a really good place to live. So if anyone out there is considering Ecuador as their bug out location, Cuenca is probably the place I'd recommend. It's not actually where we are, but Cuenca is the one where the majority of people are finding it easiest to resettle to. The second question, as to contact, certainly out here, we've spoken to quite a lot of people who are claiming a lot of UFO activity out here. We're up in the Andes, up in the mountains where we live, And there is a lot of UFO activity, particularly out in the areas where, of course, you're away from the city lights and, people can watch the skies. There's a lot of jungle and, mountains not far from where we are, where lights are seen. And, for those who don't know, there's a lot of material showing that Ecuador was the home of a race of giants in ancient times. And, of course, that ties back into the other story, beyond the Pleiadians and Greys, to the Anunnaki and this idea that there were giant slaves mining gold. And there are, lost cities in the jungle. There are places where these beings lived. There are finds being found of giant skeletons, particularly by Klaus Donner, who has actually done some work with Stephen and Evan. He's probably the man who's covered that the most. But yeah, Ecuador has a strong link into the Anunnaki story and the giants. So unsurprisingly, yeah, there's a lot of UFO activity buzzing over those jungles and over the mountains. So hopefully that helps on both your questions.
Oh, thank you very much. Can you spell the name of that town that you recommended?
Sure, yes. It's Cuenca, Cuenca.
Okay, great.
Yeah, if you look into it, it's feel free to shoot us an email privately if you want to ask about Ecuador. I'm quite happy to answer that sort of stuff, offline if you like.
Well, thank you.
Okay,
also,
thank
Carrie,
you. Yes.
Thank you. Oh, Carrie, I don't know if you had a chance to see Alex Collier's latest show, but he is announcing that he's expecting UFO visitation in 2013, and he's also telling everyone that they're the bad ones.
Okay.
To take cover. So that's his newest announcement. I don't know if you had a chance to hear his broadcast, but it was pretty good.
Okay. Thank you for letting us know. I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. I believe we have a couple questions here in the chat. I want to see if we can grab those. Someone is asking actually if anybody, it looks like almost anybody is being asked this question, whether or not you've read the Alex Collier material. So have any of you done that? Okay, well, let's ask Stephen and Evan to speak up. Have you guys looked at the Alex Collier material at all?
No, but I'll definitely write it down as a visit very soon. I'm writing that down.
There's a lot of there's several YouTube videos with him. He also spoke at one of my conferences quite a while ago, and it's a very good YouTube, which I do recommend. He also has, let's say, I think it's called something like Defending Sacred Ground, I believe is his book. It's quite a good book, Defending Sacred Ground. It's an ebook that's free online. You can usually just do a search in Google and find it. There's another question here that is talking about the movie The Last Wave, and did ask if you felt that would be Evan and or Stephen, if you feel that there is a link up with your discovery and info.
It's quite eerie, actually. We saw that written down first, and we both looked at each other and laughed. Yeah, if you're familiar with The Last Wave, it's about a sacred, a set of engravings and a sacred object that was supposed to have some sort of prophecy about what was to come. And yes, we found it quite amazing. To give you an idea, I'll sort of answer this indirectly by one of the elders. One of the elders, when he rang us up at 11:45 at night, and he rang up and apologised and asked if I was asleep. And of course the answer was yes, but I didn't say that. And there was a group of elders there. Now I could hear them yelling at him, asking. And he said, that mound that you found. He said, does it face south? And I said, I don't know. I have no idea. And of course that went down really well at 11:45. It didn't face south, but I can tell you one thing. What he did say about this particular prophecy was he was both elated and he put inverted commas around this other word, shit scared. And I've got an idea, I know why. I think you'll find that there's the prophecy they have for the future is good news, but everything's always in balance, isn't it? So yeah, I find that last wave story very, very close to what took place, and very similar actually. Quite amazing how sometimes science fiction is ahead of itself, or maybe we're behind it.
Okay, well, I have, I guess, seen the movie, or I guess, and I think I might have read the book, if there was a book, or there's a similar book anyway. But at any rate, I can tell you that it's a little confusing what you're saying, because in essence, the last wave is about a tsunami, an inundation by water, and there is a likelihood that some parts of Australia will be inundated by water in the future. Although I'm told that that Australia is the most ancient ground on the planet, and that it's withstood most of the earth changes through time. Do you feel that the elders were talking about specifically what the lost wave is talking about, which is a future inundation by water or a tsunami?
Look, there's only so much I'm allowed to talk about, because a lot of the stuff we're told we're not supposed to get out. But I can say this, that the original people always believed that Mother Nature would balance things out again, and that there is, I know the line that actually is shared in both what an elder gave us 4 years before we saw the signs that came from the book, and there is a similarity with one line, and it is called The Darkest Days. So yeah, but I don't know whether it's going to be a tsunami or something else like that. I'm not sure, but I'd be surprised if that wasn't part of it. In fact, I'm pretty sure it is.
Okay, may I ask you what part of Australia you guys are in?
A part where we shouldn't be. We're behind a place called Byron Bay, which is the most easterly point of Australia. We're in the mountains just behind there. And if something like that was to take place, we'd be the first ones to know about it. And we're only about 4 k's from the ocean, so you probably should have...
There is some height.
We are some height up.
You do have, I've been to Australia, and Byron Bay is a beautiful area, so you're in a lovely area. And there are some, high, I don't know if you call them mountains or not, but spots in that area.
There, but at least, you're right about being a lovely place. So if we are going to be taken out, at least we'll go out with a smile on our face anyway.
Okay, very optimistic of you. But if you're interacting with the elders of the Aborigine people, are you traveling into the interior area of the outback, as they say?
We tend to be working more along a tribal line called Southern Law. We run along the coast, the east coast of Australia, and I was given ceremony by the Ramangeri, which is in South Australia, and we seem to be working more in that area. We are in contact with people in the centre, but our work seems, because the person who gave me my ceremony under the banner of Wirrachin, Tano Walker, he works on the Southern Law, so I stay within that area. So we stay within about 300 k's of the coast. We've been in the Snowy Mountains a few times, the Blue Mountains, Gosford, lots of different places, but we stay in that area.
Okay. I have a contact for you guys at some point soon. If you want to contact me behind the scenes, I possibly can put you in touch with someone who might be able to help you in some areas. Let me see. As far as other questions it goes, how does Australia potentially play into the Illuminati game plan? Well, this is really a question for me, so I don't want to answer it during this time that we've got devoted to you guys, because we have such limited time. I appreciate the question. However, let me simply say that I can, as I've already mentioned here, Australia is often considered to be, well, it's called the Ark of the World by some. And there are people that are saying that the Americans, for one thing, the secret space program is hiding out a lot of things underground in Australia. The center, Pine Gap and other underground bases in that area are, of course, very well known, said to be something of a place where a lot of races go for vacation. God knows why or what they're talking about. I never quite got that. I don't know if it's a joke or what. So that's all I'm going to say about that much that I know. And I can tell you that, as I mentioned, Australia is very much a stronghold of the New World Order. So it, in a sense, it may be the new United States if the United States doesn't keep its act together. I'm kind of rooting for the United States to make it through in some form or fashion. Whether it's going to continue to be the United States as we know it is a whole nother ballgame. And as many people listening to this will realize, that we are sort of in a real state over here in this country at this moment. But there's no more leniency, in my opinion, governmentally speaking, in Australia than there is here in the United States. We've got the same people in charge there as we do here, if not more so. So that's my take on that. But in terms of, I guess, if we have any other callers, let me bring them on. If not, I'm trying to see whether or not do you guys, we have a limited amount of time here. Is there anything that you want to cover, either Bruce or Stephen and Evan? Is there anything that we haven't talked about you'd like to bring to the fore?
Sure, I'm sure those guys do as well, but I wouldn't mind just butting in with a few key points for people to perhaps take away with them. One is actually from Stephen and Evan's research, which is in respect to, you've mentioned yourself actually this cradle of civilization idea that surrounds Australia, which, I think all of us are going to agree with you there. This is what the original elders are saying, and this is what, our research, this is what the supernormal stuff, all of it is saying, Australia is basically the starting point of our modern civilization. So, there you've got several considerations. Well, at first I'd say there's some proof of this. The guys there, they've got the DNA evidence that shows that the amount of mutation in the DNA of the original population of Australia means that there had to have been modern humans there for at least 400,000 years. Now, this, of course, throws out the theory of out of Africa and all of that stuff, because, of course, that says mankind started about 250,000 years ago. So straight away, if anyone wants to go away and check that themselves, they can. They can see that the official story is basically being rubbished by the work that we've put together in the book. And this is by, respected academia gives us those figures. So we know that this is true, that Australia is really the starting place. On a personal level, I can also say that I'm very, very sure that in Australia you still have underground bases that go back to the times of the original plebeian population and the first genetic experimentation, and that there are still areas underground which are being inhabited by plebeians and used by other off-world races. And I'm quite sure that Pine Gap is, obviously used by the nefarious, off-worlders. That you'll have, no doubt greys interacting with New World Order in other areas of Australia. And Australia is certainly, yes, as you say, a key point in the New World Order global grid. My own nation of England, of course, being a very key one, and yours, the US, the three being very much partners.
Right, triumvirate, or whatever you want to call that.
Mm-hmm. And under the same law, of course, all under this British maritime law, which treats us all as basically products and ships and all of this crazy stuff that people are now starting to get their head around, that we all have these birthing certificates and that we're all ships, so citizen ships sailing around, and all of this madness which has come out of British maritime law and the the Illuminati royal bloodline families who have basically turned us all into these these numbers and products and all the rest of it, which of course Australia and the US are all under this British maritime law. We're all in that same control grid together. I'm hiding out in Ecuador, but I am an English citizen, so yes, it's the three main countries, if you like, in that particular designation of the New World Order. So Australia, is very, again, it's a very key place. People need to look there for evidence of off-world activity and also the genetics and the history of the original people that claims directly that plebeians came and that made them, that they are, this is their own history. It's not just what Stephen's saying or I'm saying. The people there say it. They say that they are the children of the plebeians and that, there's still this interaction going on. So that's my key points I want to put in there.
Okay. Let me also say though that the Aborigine people are one of the I think it's what would be called a root race, and they are not Pleiadian. It doesn't seem to me, at least in what I understand, their own direct heritage. So you're saying they're having interactions with the Pleiadians, and yet the people themselves seem to be from a different origin. I'm not sure where they say they're from, whether it's just a star within the Pleiades group or whether they come from somewhere else. Do you know? And this is for Evan or Stephen.
Yeah, look, I can tell you now, the Aboriginal people are a root race, but their roots are both Homo erectus and Pleiadian, and that's basically what Bruce was saying before. So yeah, look, there's no problem with that. In fact, there's not an original person I've met, a custodian law, that won't tell you they come from the Pleiades.
The Seven Sisters.
The Seven Sisters. Which one they come from, I don't know, but we have a marker told by Kana. It points to which star, but we don't know at the moment. But there is one thing I would like to point out that I think is really important in this story, that I believe our collective heritage has been stolen. And I think what I'm getting at there is the original people, if you look at the real story of our history, the original people sailed out from Australia and brought with them notions of gender equality, democracy, cooperation, music, art, all the civilizing things that are the hallmarks of humanity today. And I believe, we believe, up until about 8,000 years ago, everyone was living under the precepts of the dreaming, which is a general statement for their philosophy. And everyone was living the same way. And then about 8,000 years ago, money, farming, notions of ownership started to come in, and the world divided into two groups. The fearful people, the ones who had to fight nature and become part of that, and the fearless ones, the ones who still lived with nature and had no fear of anything. And I think what people need to understand is we've been convinced now today that we are naturally warlike people and that we invade other nations because that's just the way humans are. Let me tell you something. Under the precepts of the dreaming, original men did fight. They would go to neutral grounds. They would fight with women in presence who would tell them when to stop, and they'd fought as long. And when someone fell over or bled, that was enough. Death wasn't part of the arrangement there, but they never went back to someone else's land. So when things were done the old way, before we changed, nobody could ever own another person's property and walk onto another person's land because the spirits belonged to that place and not to them. So everything was kept separate. So oral histories became real histories, proper histories that were never changed because no one invaded and changed the story. So what we need to understand is the original way that people lived. And we believe this comes from a mixture between Pleiadians looking for somebody divine in the whole of this place, Australia, which was probably the remains of the Lemuria. They mixed with them. They created this race. The original people are an offshoot of that race. They are what came out of it. But then they sent something to the rest of the world about how to behave. And honestly, around 8,000 years ago, you'll find that's when original people start to retreat from Egypt and India, don't they? At the same time. It's because they backed off. We'd lost our way. And they, if you read the story of the Garden of Eden, they were naked until they were banished from paradise. Well, paradise, when the Captain Cook came here, they were still naked. It was still paradise. And then things slowly changed. But what we need to understand through all this is our nature, and this is not just for women, but for men too. When we're living under the precepts of the dreaming, 99% of the time you were focused on the divine. We started to read some of the passages that come from what they were living by, the dreaming. We are supposed to be cooperative, spiritual human beings. And when we do have disagreements, we fight them nobly and away from others, and we never involve women and children. Now, this is the way we were supposed to live. And then things change, but that's been stolen. And this is the important point. It leaves us with the notion that we really are aggressive, belligerent men, and the women do the best they can and try and control us as best as possible. But we're out of control, so where's the point? No, we're not. We've been allowed to get out of control because that's what they want from us. We need to have an understanding of the real history of the original people because I think there's something now. Like Slater said, It's not just a testimonial to the past and to the present, but the future. And I think what we're seeing at the moment is the old order is trying to hang on to that, and the new order, which is coming out of the country where the old order is very strong anyway, it's got to come out of here first. The original people are giving up their history now because they know we need it. They need it and we need it again. So we need to understand that dreaming was the way we all lived, cooperatively, spiritually. Today we live under the nightmare, and we're combative, and we're always fighting one another, and we really don't understand each other anymore. I think we need to look back at the history of the past, and since that's been stolen, there's a hole in all our heads and hearts.
Okay, well said. I would say also that I think that that's quite correct. I have a little bit different way of phrasing it, but for the most part agree with what you just said. I do believe that humanity is not a warring, race by nature, contrary to what they would have, the propaganda would sell you. In fact, it's the races that are invading us that propel humanity into wars with each other because of the DNA, the ET DNA that we all carry, various races that have been at war with each other for eons. And humanity has been spurred on by these various races that want to see this planet, well, that they have their own agendas for the use of the planet and so on. One last question for you guys in Australia, and certainly appreciate everybody coming on tonight. Sorry that we've had some interruptions. What are you feeling in terms of Fukushima in Australia, and are the indigenous people, the Aborigine, talking about Fukushima and its effects?
Well, to be honest, the answer would be no. We'd be lying if we said that's not the case. I mean, I think it's appalling what's taking place there. I'll be honest right now that the original people in this country, the ones we're working with now, are utterly focused on getting what they're doing here right. I think they look upon the rest of the planet as basically a mess. And we are blessed where we are because we've got 20 million people and that sort of spreads the damage out, but we are making a mess here too. The original people really aren't focused on anywhere past here. The ones we're working with now are so focused on making sure this all comes out properly. So I'd have to say no. We live in a country, you've got to remember this, Kerry, where 70% of all our media is controlled by the Murdoch press. You guys think you got it bad. We've got it worse here. Stuff like that never gets on mainstream TV anywhere anymore. It just doesn't turn up.
Oh, really?
Our media is owned by either Murdoch or Packer Press, and those guys pack us into gambling casinos making money. That sort of information about Fukushima, you will never get that on mainstream now. You've got to go to a government station and the SBS7. No, that sort of stuff. You think you guys have been dumbed down. Come to Australia, the land of flatliners. Yeah. We voted in someone that's worse than George Bush, for God's sake. So really, honestly, this country right now, it's flat earth really thriving big time here. So we don't get that sort of information. And it's interesting, we've done probably in the last 2 months, probably about 15 radio stations, all of them jammed, but not one in Australia.
No invitations, in other words, to do radio.
Not in this country. No. We look at the rest of the world, and when the rest of the world gives it a tick, then we stand there and say it must be good. No, not here.
All right. Well, very nice to talk to you guys. Bruce, any last words? We're really going to wind it up here because we're going to get the music starting any minute.
Okay. Yeah. I guess just from my end, I'd say that I think we probably think like Kerry in that I see the problem in the world today being a lot to do with off-world entities and a collaboration with New World Order forces. And, the guy said that, look, we are being sort of pushed down a darker path by this collaboration, and the elders of many, many races are trying to wake up the world today. And that, then alongside them, there's people like yourself and myself that are basically just trying to get people to wake up to the fact there really are, off-world agendas. There really is a secret, New World Order that's working with them, and that people need to really look at the research, coming out from, of course, dozens and dozens of researchers now and experiencers, and recognise what's really happening and not be dragged into the mainstream media nonsense circus, and to start looking at some of the the real truths that are coming out through independent researchers.
Okay. All right. It's been great having you guys on. Any parting words, Stephen and Evan Strong?
Well, no, not really, except thanks so much for having us on.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
And any of those people that have put up with all this mess, we do apologise, but I suppose it's a gift from the government. We appreciate as best we can. But basically, all we're trying to do is get out the original truth, and that's the first truth. And I think that truth resonates around not only our country, everywhere else, and we'll do the best we can. And thank you once again for our ever-present sense that's with us, and we'll speak to you next on the phone.
Okay, very good. Okay, I guess I think that we're going off the air. Are we? I don't know what's going on here. It looks like we kind of went over a tiny bit. Hello?
Is it possible to just put the websites at the end, is it, Kerry?
Yeah, go right ahead. Give your website.
Okay, for anyone that's interested in either following up on our updates or, of course, checking out the book, which is both print and ebook, please have a look at Earth4, and it's the number 4, earth4all.net, and, of course, forgottenorigin.com. And those are the two main websites to check out.
Okay, very good. Excellent. And I guess ForgottenOrigin.com, at least when I last looked, was down. Hopefully it can come back up. And thank you for being on the show again. Thank you everyone for listening. Have a great evening, and we'll be back in touch on next Friday night. And I should be able to tell you who's going to be on, but I don't have that information right. Yes, Susan Shumsky is going to be my guest. She is a specialist in yoga and has a great interest and has written a book, I believe about ascension. And I believe that's a subject close to your heart as well, Bruce.
Yes, very much so, and we do tackle some of that in the initial book, the whole the ascension mechanics, and some of the discourses that Daniella's had with higher beings that have talked about ascension. So yeah, I mean, I'm totally sort of plugged into that subject also.
All right. So once again, thank you for listening, everyone, and good night.